Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. You are listening to episode 170, which I am calling Fly Fishing Accusations. Every 10th episode, I take the opportunity to hop onto email, look at comments on the website, and look at social media chirps and interact with things that are asked and comments that are made. And I haven't gotten any accusations yet. Actually, I'm sure if I go back into the annals of Casting Across, I can find some accusations that have been made. Actually, now that I said that, I can think of a couple. But we're going to go just from the stuff from the last month or so. And actually, this episode, I do have a different interaction. I had a handful of questions that were posed to me in person at the fly fishing show a couple weeks ago in New Jersey, and I've got one that is pretty good that I think will be beneficial for folks to listen to and have some application to your fishing, especially as you're anticipating the season really kicking into gear, maybe organizing your gear, and maybe figuring out what you might need to add if you want to going to take a new facet or a new approach into your fly fishing. So that's what we're going to do. But a couple of quick administrative things. First of all, you don't have to wait 10 podcast episodes for me to interact with a question or a comment that you have. I'm always happy to respond to an email, Matthew at castingacross.com. If you follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, feel free to hop on there. I also say I've really kind of backed off on the social media stuff, not because I don't enjoy it. It's just not super high priority right now. It is not writing. It is not podcasting. It's taking pictures of stuff and putting it up there, and then you just fall down that black hole of scrolling through things. So not been super active on there, but all the content gets posted onto those channels every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I am on there, so I will see it if you do ask something. I do respond that way. All right. First question is an email, and it's an email about a place that I really enjoy. I don't spend as much time there as I'd like because it's just a little bit far for a day trip. It's certainly doable, but it's a place that I definitely consider worth a trip, especially if you are on the East Coast. So this one, Michael writes, "Hope all's well with you. I'm a fan of the podcast and website and finally have a reason to reach out. I'm a novice angler from New Jersey, and I'm headed up to Manchester, Vermont in the next few weeks for a weekend trip. Came across an article on the website from 2017 regarding Manchester, so I thought you would be a good resource. Aside from stops at Orvis and the American Museum of Fly Fishing, I'm hoping to get on the water, if even just for an hour or so. My thought is that the bat and kill is the most convenient option. Not knowing what to expect at all, are there easy to find public access points, or should I ask around for more specific suggestions? My expectations are tempered given the time of year, but as I said, just want to spend a few hours messing around, and given that I'll be traveling with family, my time will be limited. Thanks in advance, Michael." Well, I respond to Michael, but I think that's a great question. I am a fan of fishing on the Bat and Kill. I think it's a great river. It's a historic river. It's a really pretty river. It is not a river where you're going to hop in and catch a dozen trout super fast. Are there going to be days where it's on fire? Absolutely. But in my experience fishing there, there's fish to be had, but there's big fish. And I have coaxed them out with streamers. I've coaxed them out with nymphs. I've coaxed them out with dries in different parts of the river. And so knowing that, it's definitely a water worth stopping in. It is not the most productive river in Vermont. It's not the most productive river in New England by any stretch of the imagination. But between its historic significance and its ambiance, I mean, just an awesome part of Vermont, beautiful part of the country. It's worth going to, and it's worth checking out. So a couple of things. First of all, Vermont's Division of Fisheries, can't think of the name off the top of my head, whatever it is, you Google Vermont Fish and Game and that's what'll pop up. They have some great resources on their website that have access points, which I talked about in an episode, I think just 2 weeks ago, about how you have some state agencies that have a very robust resource base on their fishing and their hunting websites, and Vermont is a good one. They give you access points. They talk about kind of what kind of access is it. Is it walk-in access? Is it something where you can drag a kayak or canoe in? And they have some really good ones for the bat and kill, which is important because there is a lot of private land there. But once you get in the water, you're generally good to go. And so I sent Michael that way, and I would send you that way. Now, another thing, hold on a second. That is a good thing to know if you really want to plan ahead. But the very first time I went there, I walked into the flagship Orvis store. And I've said before, I like Orvis. I worked for Orvis. This was my first kind of toe in the water in working in fly fishing. And so I still have a lot of gear, and I'm totally fine with Orvis. I know they are one of the big companies, but as I've talked about numerous times on the podcast, I think there's room in fly fishing, as there is in virtually all other industries, for big companies and small companies. And I think that they have a great symbiotic relationship if done well. All that to say, go to the Orvis flagship store. The very first time that I went to Manchester, Vermont, and I wanted to fish the bat and kill, I walked into the flagship Orvis store there, and I walked to the fly fishing department, and there was a person there who knew how to fly fish. Now, sometimes you might get the impression that all the people that work there are only about selling, barber jackets and dog beds. But the people that were working at the fly fishing department every time that I've been there are legitimate fly fishers. They're people that I've actually, had rubbed shoulders with in other contexts also in fly fishing. And they grabbed the paper map and the pen and they pointed out where to go. And that is an awesome thing. That's something that I grew, in the pre-internet age. That's how I learned where to access rivers. That's how I learned where I should be focusing on fishing in certain seasons when certain things were happening on the water. So that was a really cool experience, maybe 10 years ago, to walk into a fly shop, and instead of them trying to sell me a book, instead of them trying to sell me their little laminated pamphlet that they had made up, they pulled out from that counter a map, and using a pen and making marks and making notes, showing me exactly where I should go to fish if I wanted to just get into fish, if I wanted to try to get big fish, and if I wanted to fish dry flies. That's awesome. So I had that experience at the flagship store there in Manchester. It's an awesome store, all sorts of stuff. They have a sale barn that's off-site that's worth checking out. I mean, that's where you can get good deals. I often find that people do balk at paying full price with the big companies, but they have no reservations about, getting something for 40% off or 60% off. And so that option is definitely there as well. American Museum of Fly Fishing is definitely a good stop. That's a place to go and to just spend a few hours. And it sounds like for Michael's situation, that is going to fit in with his schedule. And I will say that Manchester is a great kind of family location, a great couples location. There's good food, there's good shopping, there's good hiking, there's good kayaking. All of those things are there. There's lots of local food and produce, agritourism, that sort of stuff. It is not as crunchy as other parts of Vermont, if that is something that might be scaring you away. And it's relatively accessible from Boston and from New York City, and even from eastern Pennsylvania. So you can get up there and really check out a very cool part of the country that has fishing in it. And because it's not remote and rugged, you're able to do what Michael suggested, where you're able to get in and do the shopping part of it, do the history part of it, and do the fishing part of it, all within a day, and not feel like you're monopolizing your time if you have other things in the agenda, or your family's time. So thanks, Michael, for that question. Hopefully you had a good trip. I haven't heard back yet, so hopefully you'll let me know. Okay, the second question, and actually the third question here in a second, are about gear. All right. The second question comes from a couple of people. Actually, just in the last week, I received 2 emails from people, and I'll leave them anonymous, but 2 emails, one asking about fish carvings from a company that I'd written about a few years ago, Sunfish Woodworks, and another one talking about a rod holding device that Selkirk Designs put out that I wrote about. I think that was just last year. And I've had that happen a number of times in the last, 6 years of casting across, where someone writes and asks me a question that might have been intended for the actual company that makes the product. And so for me, that's kind of cool in the sense that I'm able to say, hey, they're still around, they're still doing this, and here's how you can get a hold of them. But sometimes I think it's probably just because of search engine optimization that if someone Googles, fly rod holding device, I pop up first, and maybe just because of a cursory and quick read, they think that I'm the actual manufacturer or purveyor of said object instead of clicking on the link, which is okay. Honest mistake. I'm sure I've done that before. But that got me thinking, I've had people email in the past and say, hey, you wrote a review about this last week. You wrote a review about this last year. You wrote a review about this 5 years ago. What are your thoughts on it? Those are great emails, only because I like that they're taking my word, but they're also being inquisitive. I wouldn't say skeptical, but being inquisitive, wanting to ask follow-up questions. Maybe asking, I've had people ask, how has that held up? How has that been something that has been useful in this situation? How does it dovetail into other fishing you do? Which is a great, insightful question, because I only can fit so much into a review, and I can only fit so much into a review that is from using something 5 or 6 times, something that's been only used for one season. And here I am 4 or 5 years later, and I've told people, you know what, it's a fun rod, but it hasn't made it into my regular rotation. It's just a little bit softer than I'd like. I use it every once in a while, but if that's what you're looking for, then maybe that's something that you can enjoy. Or, it's a cool gadget, and I used it a lot when I first had it, but I found more and more it gets shoved deeper and deeper into my vest, and I'm not using it as much as I thought I might have. So you might say, why don't you go back and amend those articles or take something down if you've stopped using it? I don't have the time for that. Honestly, I don't have the time for that. And it's not like Casting Across is the first stop that people go to when they want the authoritative take on all things fly fishing. I am not the Encyclopedia Britannica, which for those of you under maybe 30, it's like Wikipedia, only printed out and put on a bookshelf. Anyway, I'm not that. I see a lot of my old reviews get a lot of traction online, but it's not such that I feel the burden or responsibility to go back and amend things. If need be. And there's dead links all over the website. There are products that are no longer in rotation. But if you read something from 2017 and you click on the link and it doesn't go anywhere, that's not a me problem, to be honest with you. I'm not a full-time webmaster going back through hundreds and hundreds of articles. But if you have a question about something, I'm always happy to engage and have that conversation, because that's honestly the purpose of those things. It's not to give you the comprehensive information. It's to get you thinking about it and get it started. So, but thank you always for those emails. If someone says, hey, you wrote about this, what are your thoughts on it today? Or, how can I get in contact with a person? I'm having a hard time finding them online. I'm happy to do that. All right. So first thing was Manchester. Second thing was old gear reviews. Thirdly, I was at the fly fishing show and I was walking around and a vendor introduced somebody to me, and I think his name is John, and he listened to the podcast a few times, and we got talking. The vendor knows me, listens to the podcast. The guy had listened to the podcast, read the website, and said, hey, you talked about a few times and you've written about trail running and fly fishing, and what are just a couple things that I should get? Now, of course, I have a couple articles on trail running, and I have a couple articles on just packing ultralight, and I think I have a podcast on it as well, but I have no problem kind of rehashing those things. And I would say the most important thing, if you are going to try to move quickly, either it's at a brisk pace, just walking, or at jogging, is a pack that fits well, a pack that is snug. And there's 2 main components with this, and you can find fly fishing packs that accomplish this, but more often than not, it's going to be ultralight backpacking packs, like day packs, or it's going to be bulkier hydration packs. And actually, I would say that would be my very first stop if you are going to be looking for a pack to move quickly into the woods to find water. There are going to be fly fishing packs that do a good job. There are going to be ultralight day packs that do a good job, but a bulkier hydration pack, so a pack that is primarily built for keeping water on your back, but then also has enough room for those essentials, is probably where I would start. And so you could find that, REI or EMS or LL Bean or just online all over the place. And actually, my recommendation today at the end of the podcast is going to be a good spot also. But why is that? One, they're going to be form-fitting to your back. They're not going to move around on you. I detest it when any of my bags and packs move around on me. That's why I like Vitavoo slings. I think they of all the sling packs I've ever worn, they are the most form-fitting, and some of that has to do with their design and how they're ergonomically built. But the same thing is said of a pack that you're wearing as you are moving quickly, because with fly fishing gear, you're going to have a couple of bulky items that are going to cause that weight to move around. So there is a good way and a bad way to pack a backpack for walking long distances. And as you go faster and as you add terrain, then it becomes even more integral. And so that has to do with the distribution of weight, being low and closer to your back, not a lot of weight up at the top, not a lot of weight away from your back. But with fly fishing gear, you can't always accomplish that. If you have a rod tube, whenever possible, I like to have the rod in a sock and not in a tube. If you have wading boots, if you don't have a pair of shoes that can do double duty in the water and on the trail, then that's going to create issues. So having a pack that starts flush with your back, that you're able to not cinch so tight that it's going to cause a problem on your shoulders or around your waist, but if there's a waist strap, if there's a chest snap, and if those straps can pull that pack nice and close to your back without causing discomfort, then that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is if there are built-in compression straps in that bag. So these are going to be those straps that you can, nylon straps probably, that you can ratchet down, and they're going to hold things tightly. So if you have a pack that's a little bit bigger than you need and you don't fill it up all the way, by pulling those straps tight, it's going to hold things against the back of your pack, which is up against your back. That's very easy to say and hopefully easier to understand. But it's basically all about creating a tighter, compact package that is going to be close to your back, because as you move quickly, you don't want that thing bouncing around. Maybe that doesn't bother you, but I know it drives me nuts, and it also, I believe, is going to lead to chafing and rashes and things like that, because it's moving more, and as you perspire, then that is going to get exacerbated, and nobody wants that. So I would say that was the very first thing that I would look at. I think I would rather fish with gear that can't break down as small, and I would rather use just my normal fly fishing stuff if I could find a way to have it close to my back and have it nice and tight. I think that is a great, inexpensive way to get moving into the woods quicker, is having a bag that works better for you, if that makes sense. Beyond that, shoes. It's all about the shoes. So I am fishing out of the Astral TR1 mesh, and that is a very capable light trail runner and wet wading shoe. It is a light. They advertise it as a light hiking water shoe. I think it is a great wet wading shoe, but you can also do some light trail running in it. If I'm going to be going further, so I'd use that for maybe like 1-ish miles, maybe 1 to 2 miles. I'm sure this summer I'll push a little bit further. But if you are going to go further than that, so like when I'm 5-6 miles in, then I do have a devoted pair of trail running shoes. My current ones are some New Balance trail running shoes, because where I live, I'm right by a New Balance factory, so that's where I get most of my running shoes. And then I would just strap those Astral TR1 meshes on the back of my pack, because they don't weigh anything and they dry off super quick. But that's because I have a pack that's able to lash these shoes that have zero bulk, both in weight and in volume, to the back of my pack using like bungee cords. And when I run, they're not going to be bouncing around. And when I'm wading, they're not going to be causing me to be, all out of balance. If you aren't planning on going super far, then you can find a pair of shoes or even a pair of heavy duty sandals that can do double duty. But that would be the second thing I would look at, is that your footwear is really going to make a big difference. You don't want to be inconvenienced or unsafe while you are running/jogging or while you're wading. So that's something I think I'll explore again as we get closer to the season starting up, because you're never going to find a perfect pair of shoes for every situation. And to be honest with you, you're never going to have 2 pairs of shoes that are going to be perfect for every situation. But that's okay. We can't be so persnickety and so high maintenance that we need that to enjoy ourselves. It's all about finding the things that work most often. My favorite pairs of wading boots and my favorite pairs of running shoes work under most situations. And there's a few times where we say, this is a little bit clunky for this situation, a little bit too light for that situation, not enough ventilation for this. But you know what? That's not what dominates my thinking, and doesn't detract from my enjoyment of using those things, but more importantly, my enjoyment fishing. So, John, that was fun to have that conversation, and I was able to elaborate a little bit more when I'm sitting in front of a microphone as opposed to in a busy convention hall. So hopefully you're listening to this as well. All right, so 3 quick questions. Manchester, Vermont, old gear reviews, and priorities when preparing for and packing for fly fishing quickly and lightly as you're moving into the woods. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you, again, have accusations, Matthew@castingacross.com. I'd be happy to interact with those as soon as I get them. I'm a little busy these days, but that being said, still like to get back to everybody as soon as I can. This week on castingacross.com, the first article is a Rusty Flybox article, Rusty Flybox line. So this one's kind of neat because it is an article, it is a video, YouTube video that I made, and a podcast all about Flyline. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Flyline is the most underrepresented, undersung, and unappreciated aspect of terminal fly fishing gear. Get good stuff. It doesn't cost that much more, and it will make you a better caster, and it will make you both in distance, accuracy, and in presentation. So go check that out, Rusty Flybox line, and you will hear my thoughts on those things. And then Wednesday's article was a good one. I enjoyed writing it. It was called Not Quite a Fishing Room. Not Quite a Fishing Room. So my grandfather, when I was growing up, had a gun room, and I spent a lot of time in there just sitting, looking around, messing with stuff, having him show me things. And it was a gun room. It was not super organized, although I'm sure he knew where everything was. He had a fan in it, so he was able to smoke his pipe. It smelled like gun oil as well. It was an awesome place for a kid that was interested in that kind of stuff, but more importantly, interested in hanging out with the men. So I write about what my fishing room is like, or what it isn't like, I should say, and share some daydreams. But it's a fun little trip down memory lane, as well as an exploration of what may be one day, but what certainly is working today. This week's recommendation on the podcast is Sierra. So Sierra is owned by the TJ Maxx company, and it is a closeout outdoor gear store. So they have a new one that opened up near me, and so my son and I went just a couple days ago, and we walked around. And if you are looking for, well, first and foremost, if you're looking for like random stuff, this is a good place to go. But secondly, if you're looking for quality outdoor clothing, this is an awesome stop. Where you can go and find things that are incredibly inexpensive. This is where you will go to find a good pair of underwater pants. This will be a good place for you to go to find wicking shirts and shells for your fishing and for your hunting and for your hiking. I'm sure that this is not news to anybody, but if you do most of your shopping online, or if you do most of your shopping at department stores, I'm sure there's people that do that still. This is a great alternative where you're going to find brand name stuff, and then probably just store name stuff, just kind of generic, but probably made in the exact same places as some of the big name stuff for incredibly cheap prices. I mean, all of the shorts I saw were between like $7 and $12. All of the the wicking pants were between $10 and $12. Awesome selection. I showed great restraint, only bought a pair of shoes, but we'll definitely be heading back there as I look at my my spring and summer fishing gear and clothing and get rid of some stuff that's a little bit weather worn. So I'll put a link to their website on the show notes of this page on Casting Across, and they have a website with lots of stuff on it, but I would say if you have one locally, if you have a Sierra locally, that you head in there and you check out stuff and touch things, and for probably under $50 you can get a couple of good pieces of gear. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app and then rate the podcast in iTunes. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.